All right, hello squad. Today we're doing my first unplanned video on this channel in probably at least a year. I'm going to be, as you know from the title, ranking the UFC weight divisions by my personal opinion, by how much I enjoy watching them, how much I like each division. And yeah, don't take this video as kind of a set in stone opinion. As longtime MMA fans know, divisions can change over time. We had recently Alexa Grasso beating Valentina Shevchenko, and that kind of opened up the division. For the better or for worse, divisions could change over time, so don't take this as my opinions or standings on UFC divisions forever. But I do kind of want to take this video to get my opinion, my current opinion at least out there as of 2023, the first half of 2023. And yeah, I'm going to be considering how much I like each division by the ranked contenders, how competitive I feel the division is, as well as how the fights generally tend to go. Of course, the same type of fights happen across all weight divisions, both the good and the bad. But yes, the bigger the difference in weight, generally there tend to be some differences. And if there's anything notable, I'll point it out. So let's just start. We're going to go from lightest to heaviest. We're going to start with women's strawweight. I'm going to put women's strawweight at a good old C tier. I do agree that this is one of the deeper divisions in the UFC, but admittedly, it doesn't have that many names, right, that I'm very interested or invested in. Of course, there are some, like Weili Zhang, our current champion, for example. I mean, who doesn't love Weili Zhang? I love Joanna Jędrzejczyk back when she was active. No, her first fight against Weili Zhang was one of those fights in the UFC that got me into MMA. So I have a lot of respect for that. I do like Angela Hill too. That might be an unpopular opinion. She is a decision machine, but I have been impressed with her last few performances, but as far as that, not really. Okay, Jessica Andrade, sure she hasn't had much momentum in 2023 despite a dominant performance in January. But I do like Jessica Andrade. But outside of those fighters, not really much going on for at least how much I'm invested in strawweight. It's always a good co-main event for a championship fight. Title eliminators, can be fun. I'm going to be tuning in to Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill. But other than that, yeah, not really too much to say about strawweight. I think it's good. And yeah, women's flyweight, I might have to put on the same tier. I think I might put it a little bit above women's strawweight just because it has a few more names that I'm more invested in. For example, Erin Blanchfield, I think, is a beast. Valentina Shevchenko, long reigning champion for a long time, very well rounded. And obviously, with Alexa Grasso's recent victory this year, she has seemingly cracked open this division like a walnut. Of course, we'll have to see what happens when they run it back. But until then, I think just because it feels like to be the more, I don't know. As far as star power goes, even if it's not that much more than strawweight, I think just because it feels a little bit more open now, which is something new, I might have to go women's flyweight a little bit higher. I don't know. I might put these in order for now. I don't know. I don't know. I do like Weili Zhang more than Weili Zhang is my current favorite active women's fighter. I don't know. We'll just put these both at C tier. We'll just call it that. Next is men's flyweight. This could be an unpopular opinion, maybe in the UFC's eyes, maybe fans may agree, but I'm putting men's flyweight in A tier. I love men's flyweight. I do have a bias towards this class because if I were to compete in the UFC, this would be the class that I would fight in, probably for a long time. And I love men's flyweight division. Sure, it doesn't have as much star power. We are only just in June. We're getting our first fight night men's flyweight fight night main event in freaking years. But I'm always entertained by a men's flyweight fight. I'm never not disappointed. This year we've had some great fights. Like CJ Vergara had a fight of the night earlier this year. Brandon Royval had an amazing performance. I already was a fan of Brandon Royval, but his Mateus Nicolau knockout was amazing. I'm also a fan of Mateus Nicolau. I like Matt Chanel, Karakai France, Figueiredo, obviously Brandon Moreno, who doesn't like him, and of course my favorite unranked fighter in the UFC, Tatsuo Taira, is in men's flyweight. The skill level is just very high in flyweight. Men's flyweight tends to not have that natural size to overpower their opponents. They don't have as much of that natural power to knock out their opponents. A lot of the time, it all comes down to very high skill level. If you were tired, some people may have been tired of the Moreno Figgy rivalry. Me personally, I loved it because they were just so high level, so competitive. It was very entertaining. I'm always excited for a men's flyweight fight, no matter what, whether or not it's ranked or unranked. I just think it's a very entertaining division. Maybe there's been only one men flyweights fight this year that wasn't great, and that was the recent Charles Jordan fight. But that's not to say that his fight earlier in the year wasn't a great performance. I love men's flyweight. I love men's flyweight, you know, and I think that's going to stay for a while. I do have a lot of respect for the class. So moving on, we have women's bantamweight. Women's bantamweight is a D tier. Not the most entertaining division, especially when Amanda Nunes is your champion. Of course, we were going to have Nunes versus Pena 3 in June, which kind of shows the state of the division. Sure, Aldana's definitely going to be a more interesting fight, but not by that many means. Don't really have much else to say. I'm not trying to put down women's MMA. Like I said, Wei Lei Zhang, I love, and her fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk is one of my favorite fights ever. But, as far as women's bantamweight goes, it's not really that interesting. I'm not really invested. Moving on, we're going to go with men's bantamweight. I'm going to put men's bantamweight in A tier as well. Men's bantamweight obviously has a lot of star power. Maybe not the biggest draws, maybe not the most main events and pay-per-views, but when you look at a lot of the notable figures, there's a lot of them. Aljamain Sterling is a champion. The discussion of how good he is as a champion is highly discussed. We have great fighters such as Corey Sandhagen, Song Yadong, Chito Vera, Piotr Jan, formerly TJ Dillashaw. I don't know why I said that because he's supposedly retired. This is about active. Let me think a little bit more. I do like Mario Batista. I really like Davey Grant, Umar Nurmagomedov. Marcus McGee recently made a cool statement. Willie Santos, Rinya Nakamura, Altengeli, right? It's pretty loaded. And you know what? Let's be real. For those who watched UFC 288 recently, it's been hammered home that UFC men's bantamweight is one of, if not the deepest division in the UFC, in the entirety of the UFC roster. And I do agree, it probably is the deepest division. I mean, you have Corey Sandhagen recently beating Song Yadong, who just recently beat Ricky Simone, right? Song Yadong won against Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera won against Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley won against Piotr Jan, and Piotr Jan beat Corey Sandhagen. It's just such a competitive division. And so, yeah, I'm also very invested in a lot of the ranked fighters across bantamweight, and there are a pretty decent amount of bantamweight fighters I'm a fan of. So, yeah, I think that bantamweight gets an A tier. I could put it above men's flyweight, but I do have a bias towards men's flyweight. I do think it's more entertaining generally. But yeah, men's bantamweight, totally an A. And now moving on to women's featherweight, I'm going to make another tier real quick. And you can probably see where this is going. Yeah, a women's featherweight is an F tier. I mean, there hardly is a division right now. Like, I don't think it's even considered. Women's featherweight is even considered a division. It's just kind of an open division. Get a win streak, make a few good statements, and you're already in line for the title. Don't really have much else to say. Once again, if Amanda Nunes is a champion, it's not the most interesting division. Don't need to talk about it for too long. Men's featherweight, I'm also putting up an A tier. I think like bantamweight, I have a lot of fighters I'm a fan of. Whereas I have a few fighters in my top 10, top 15 that are bantamweight. I mean, I have a good amount of my favorites of all time across men's featherweight. Obviously, the champion, Alexander Volkanovski, amazing. Max Holloway, top 5, maybe top 3 fighters of mine. Yair Rodriguez, I'm a big fan of. Calvin Kattar, who deserved to be in my top 15. Who else? There's a lot of good personality too. Well, I don't know about personalities, but Josh Emmett's good. I know that some people don't like him. Ilya Taporia making some good statements lately. I mean, who else? Nate Landwehr, Nate the Train, very entertaining fighter. Can't have a hard time pronouncing this one. Shalion Nordambike. Jack Jenkins had a recently really good performance. UFC Australia. I think it's got good star power. I think I'm always invested for a men's featherweight fight. And of course, it has very high profiled fights. They can get their own main events. I love men's featherweight, to be honest. As of right now, I do love men's featherweight. Don't have much else to say. Next up, we have lightweight. Lightweight's an S tier. Lightweight is an S tier. Not only is it one of the most competitive divisions in the UFC, it's just full of sharks, but also right now, I would say it's the biggest in terms of star power. Anytime a ranked lightweight fight gets booked, it's always an event. It's always a holiday. You just go over all the fighters at lightweight. You have Islam Makhachev, our champion, potential great, Charles Oliveira, most decorated finisher in UFC history. Yes, a lot of those finishes did come from featherweight, but the point is he's lightweight now. Obviously, my bias towards my current favorite fighter of all time, Dustin Poirier, is in lightweight. Michael Chandler is super entertaining. Justin Gaethje is one of my favorite fighters ever. Who doesn't like some Dan Hooker? And even then, if they don't have as much star power, they're still very notable for their skill sets, such as Beneil Darwish, Arman Sukarian, Mutez Gamrot. A lot of great fighters at lightweight. Manuel Torres, Nazim Sadikov, Evan Elder, Yanal Ashmaz, Matt Frivola, Drew Dober. I can just go on and on and on. If you look at the resumes of some of these fighters, it also just opens up a deep hole. Like look at Dustin Poirier's resume and who he's fought in the past. Eddie Alvarez. I mean, some of them are still active here, but yeah, like Justin Gaethje, Michael Johnson. I'm talking about Justin Gaethje now. He beat Michael Johnson. Yeah, Dustin Poirier got knocked out by Michael Johnson. But anyways, it's a very deep division in terms of star power. When you look at Donald Cerrone's history, he's fought the who's who of lightweight, and it's just such a big, fun, competitive division. Lots of star power. Yeah, lightweight's in S tier. It's my favorite division right now. Moving on, we have welterweight. I'm gonna put it at a B tier. As far as general talent tends to go, there's not really too much welterweights I'm a fan of. I'm only really a big fan of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson at welterweight, right? And anyone that I like isn't really as much, but still like, such as Jeff Neal, JDM, Bam Bam Bambarina, Rafael dos Anjos is in the lightweight rankings, but I believe he only intends to be welterweight for a while now. Welterweight has a lot of star power. Kamaru Usman, Islam. I mean, okay, hold on. I know I was gonna say Leon Edwards, and I know that the UFC doesn't really give him too much flack for being a draw. I don't think people think he's the biggest draw. But as far as high-profile championship fights, I mean, obviously the rivalry with Kamaru Usman was huge. The recent Bilal Muhammad versus Gilbert Burns fight, we know that Bilal Muhammad is considered to be the biggest draw, but still a very high-profile fight. Shavkat Rakhmonov is definitely coming in as a big contender. And obviously Colby Covington probably is one of the biggest draws in the UFC right now, coming from welterweight. I just feel like you're missing out. Even if I'm not a fan of that many welterweight fighters, I'm missing out if I'm not watching a welterweight fight, especially a ranked fight. I feel like I'm missing out. Very high profile division. And because of that, I am invested. But yeah, as far as talent, I'm not a fan of that many fighters, but yes, it is an investing division. Moving on to middleweight, I'll put it as C tier. I'll put middleweight as a C tier. The only fighter that I'm really a big fan of is Robert Whittaker at middleweight, and I do highly respect Adesanya, and as far as his placement in the middleweight go conversation. But yeah, it's not the deepest division at all. If Martin Vettori is one of your best wrestlers, then it's not that deep a division. Yes, we might be getting Khamzat Chimaev soon, where we're getting Bo Nickel, right? But that's really it. It's not that deep a division, not that competitive. I'm not really that interested. Izzy's a big star and a big draw, so yes, his fights are very high profile. But as far as that, I'm not really that interested in the middleweight division. They do have some entertaining fights overall. I do have to give it that. I do like Gregory Rodriguez. I do like Abdul Razak Alhassan, Roman Kopylov, Park Ji-young, and recently Ikram Aliskerov. But yeah, not really too much. Not really too much enthusiasm for the middleweight division. But if you have a dominant champion for so long, that may be how it be. We're gonna see how time goes on. But yeah, middleweight's a C. I will say that it's been growing on me, but yes, as of right now, middleweight's a C. I probably do care about more of the top 10 ranked fights across welterweight more than I do with middleweight. Not to say that I'm not gonna watch Robert Whittaker versus Dricus Duplessis this summer, but yeah, middleweight's a C. Moving on to light heavyweight, I'm gonna put it at a B tier. Light heavyweight may not have the biggest star power. I do think it has some interesting personalities, though. A big part of why light heavyweight is at a B tier is because of my intense bias towards Yuri Prochazka, one of my favorite fighters ever. And because he's in that division, it does get, to me at least, a lot of attention. Obviously, we had some great fights at championship level, such as Yuri Prochazka versus Glover Teixeira, Jamal Hill versus Glover Teixeira, right? Johnny Walker is in the division, and that's something to say. He's an interesting personality. Anthony Smith may not be the most acclaimed, but he's a very good fighter, very well-rounded fighter. It's probably not that deep of a division if Anthony Smith is your ranked number 5, but I'm still interested in the ranked fights. Ryan Spann, Nikita Krylov, Alexander Rakic. Rakic, is that how you pronounce it? Apologies. Jan Blachowicz, obviously, and we're going to get Alex Pereira very soon. I think it's a pretty interesting division, to be honest. And yes, of course, this is a biased video, so I'm going to be biased towards a division that hosts, to me, the most entertaining fighter on the roster right now. So I'm gonna go with light heavyweight at B tier. And once again, I'm gonna say this: these can change over time. These can change over time. This is not set in stone. And I think people who have been watching MMA for longer than I have are gonna have different opinions than I do. I think people who've been watching MMA for less than I have might have different opinions. This is all just relative, all subjective. And before I get into this last tier, heavyweight, subscribe. What do you think about these divisions? Where would you rank each division? Let me know down below. Subscribe for more MMA videos, right? So, anyways, moving on to men's heavyweight. I'm kind of on the fence. I could be leaning C tier because it's not that deep of a division right now. It's a very hollow division, but it also can be an entertaining division with the knockout power, and there's got some good personalities. I might have to put it C tier. Yeah, I might have to put it C tier. Yeah, it's not that deep a division. You can just go on a few fight win streak and you're in title contention, right? Um, of course, that's the same across multiple divisions here, but I don't know. It's just not that interesting a division as far as contenders go. As far as personalities, there's definitely a good amount that I like. I like Justin Tafa, Tai Tuivasa. I mean, who doesn't like Tai Tuivasa? I'm definitely a fan of Tom Aspinall. I do think he's a very well-rounded fighter, entertaining as he is good. That's it, I think. As far as fighters I'm really a fan of, yeah, I think C's deserved. Obviously it's a big division, heavyweight. Maybe if this was last year when Francis Ngannou was still active, and if we got a fight with Francis Ngannou versus John Jones, it may have been more interesting. But as of right now, not really too high. I do have a lot of respect for Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier, but this is obviously more related to current fighters. And I did talk a little bit about lightweight as if it was including past fighters, but anyways, yeah, heavyweight's at a C tier. I'm gonna go with that. All right, so this is it. I feel pretty good about this ranking. Obviously, this can change over time. So go ahead and let me down below your opinions on these weight classes. Which are your favorite? Which are your least favorite? How would you rank them? Agree or disagree with me? Let me know down below. And also comment if you have any ideas for other videos that you want me to do. I, of course, still have more videos on the way. Maybe get more of a schedule going. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you all next time.